Bring Molly Ball in, political reporter for the Wall Street Journal. She joins us right now, and so does our friend Paul Rieckhoff, the host of the Independent Americans podcast. Paul's here in New York. So we had all kinds of plans there to talk about independent voters deciding the election, Molly. We still could, but let's focus for a moment on what's happening on the floor of the Senate. So it's just as they dismissed one article, and we already know they're going to dismiss the second. Is there a political fallout here, though? I guess the Republican argument had been, hey, we at least need to hear this, right? And now doesn't look like we will.
Mr. Durbin.
Well, you know, the Democrats have said from the beginning that they believe that this is basically a frivolous, a partisan exercise and not worth wasting time on. One thing about the Senate in particular, floor time is very precious, although it may seem like they never get anything done. They don't want to spend the time having a whole trial on charges that all Democrats and even some Republicans view as not rising to the level of impeachment. This is really rooted in, you know, an objection to the president's border policies, which is widely shared, I think, among Republicans and among American voters. But even some Republicans have said just because you object to the president's policies doesn't mean you should be impeaching a cabinet secretary whose job is simply to carry out those policies. So we've seen, you know, Senator Murkowski, the Republican who voted present, was one of those who voiced that objection to this impeachment, saying that, you know, even if you have a problem with how the president has handled the border, impeaching the Homeland Security Secretary is simply not going to do anything to change that.
Your take on all this, Paul, as we watch it live?
I think it's a big old waste of time. And I think most Americans view it that way. Independent Americans in particular. I mean, Congress has got to show they can get things done. And right now, they're bickering about this, which looks like, you know, a big waste of time. They're not actually going to get Mayorkas impeached. They're not actually going to do anything about the border, which is the bigger issue that I think many people in the Republican base want to see. Israel's at war. Ukraine's at a tipping point, and Congress is squabbling. And this is why so many people are frustrated with Congress. And I think the question is, who can make the case that it's the other person's fault, right? Democrats say it's Republicans. Republicans say it's Democrats. Independents are watching the whole thing, saying, show me you can get something done.
Well, it's kind of interesting because we can keep showing the video of the Senate floor, and we know what they're going to do, and we'll keep talking about it to some extent. But it's exactly what Molly wrote about, right, Molly, that you were talking about the president and his challenges with independent voters, to Paul's point. And, you know, one of the things that he is challenged on is a policy position. I know, Paul, you're saying this is a waste of time, but is immigration, right? And that this is an issue where he's had some issues. So forget about this theater that we're watching. We'll keep watching it. But think about the larger issue, Molly. This is an issue for this president that's going to affect the election.
Ms. Smith.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen in our Wall Street Journal polling and in other polls that immigration is a top-of-mind issue for voters across the board. And I think particularly with independents and moderates, it's an issue that they would like to see action on. Now, I give Republicans credit here. They brought the White House to the table. They forced the White House to negotiate on this issue, and they came up with a bipartisan plan, and then the Senate proceeded to torpedo its own bipartisan deal, and Congress still has not acted on this issue.
Right.
I think the question for the president, since he still gets very low marks on this issue, and since voters widely blame him for the situation at the border, the question is, will he take matters into his own hands? Will he do some kind of executive action? And we've been hearing for months that he might. He has even said that he might. But what we have heard and reported is that a combination of concerns about the legality of doing something like that and concerns about blowback potentially from his progressive base have kept him from taking any kind of executive action on immigration so far.
That was the whole issue that you wrote about, Molly. That's what reason we had you on today in the first place, was this idea that the president, in some people's minds, is catering too much to the left, too much to his progressive base, and he's losing the moderate middle, the people that he needs, the undecided voters, and as Paul says, the independent-minded voters who he needs to win. And this is a big issue that speaks to that, immigration. Paul, your view, you're always saying,
I think it's a tough issue for many Americans, definitely for moderates and independents, and they want to see progress. Show us you can get anything done. If it's through executive action, great. Stand up in front, be a strong leader, and get things done. If you're in the Senate and you think you can get something done, then push it forward. People who are practical just want to see results. And I think that's why you see so many people checking out of both parties and just frustrated, throwing their hands up. If Biden does take executive action, we said this before. I think it'll move people. I think it'll show that he's taking it seriously, that he's breaking ranks with his base, which I think is going to show a degree of independence on his part, and I think will therefore attract the folks who consider themselves independent.
Right, because the issue is this, and the issue is also the war when you talk about catering to your base versus independence. And I don't know, Molly, what your schedule is. We do have to get a break in. Can you stay until the other side? There's a few more of these issues we can talk about in a few minutes. If you can, great. If not, we understand that. Paul has nothing to do. He has no plans for dinner, nothing, so he's staying either way here in New York. We'll take the break. The Senate floor, they've dismissed. Continue. I said, wow, maybe that'd be great. We won't have any Senate, nothing until the end of the year. We might as well. Molly, continue. We're talking about the serious stuff here. It is an election year, and, trying to fight for that middle. Pick up where you left off if you can.
Yeah, I think it's easy to look at these widespread protests from pro-Palestinian progressives and think, well, that must be the reason that Joe Biden looks like he's losing this election. And plenty of Republicans and conservatives have accused the president of sort of making foreign policy with the Gaza protesters in mind, particularly when you look at a swing state like Michigan. But if you actually look at the data, that's not the reason that Joe Biden is losing Michigan or any other state. He's getting about the same amount of his base as Trump is getting of his. They're each getting about the same proportion of their respective parties. Where Joe Biden is losing this election is in the middle. It's with independents. That's where Trump is beating him. And when there was a group did an analysis of the voters who voted for Biden in 2020 and now say that they're going to support Trump, those voters are primarily moderates and conservatives. They are not liberals. So it is just not the case that those angry progressives, those liberals who soured on Joe Biden, that is not the reason that he appears to be losing the election.
There's people sort of like you, Paul. Why do you, Molly could probably tell us as well, but why do you think that is, Paul?
I think they view him as soft. I mean, I think ultimately the challenge for Biden is to show he's strong, whether it's strong on the border, strong on the economy, strong on Ukraine. And when he tries to please everybody, he pleases nobody. But in particular, moderates continue to look for strength, look for assertiveness, look for getting something done. And I think, right now, Biden has got to show that he's not old. He's got to show he can move quickly. He can respond to the majority of the country, which is in the middle, and especially to the independents that are 49% or so of the voting base, especially in places like Michigan and Arizona in critical swing states. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, veterans, young veterans, 50% of them are independent. They care about national security. They care about foreign policy. And they don't forget about things like the Afghanistan withdrawal, which was a total debacle. So I think Biden's kind of digging himself out of a hole here. And every day the news breaks, if he looks weak, it gives Trump an opportunity to pounce.
Paul, my wife's Italian. I know that you're not Italian, right? But
I am.
you are
Go
Italian.
figure, right?
Oh, there you go. I knew there's a problem. So you talk with your hands like that. You're getting in my box. You see we have the three boxes? You see that?
Got it.
Do it again with your hands.
Do the hands?
There he is. He's in my box.
It's a sleight of hand trick. There we go.
Oh, man. Well, so it's like, come on, you're messing up my shot here.
Yeah.
No, but good points all along. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Paul, for sticking around. Quick break. We'll be right back to see if they dismiss this second article against Mayorkas. All right, they're still going on the Senate floor. So, again, one article of impeachment against Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has already been dismissed. We'll wait on a vote for the second. So this Mayorkas impeachment trial doesn't appear as if it'll really get going. The first article was willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law. The second's breach of public trust. So that first one's out. Second one continues. Senator Kennedy, again, introducing another motion. We're going to see this until we get up to a vote. Paul Rykoff's still with me here in New York. It's interesting because there's a lot going on in this Congress, a lot of dynamics, right, that we're looking at. We're going to have another vote. It looks like it'll come on Saturday on the foreign aid, the way the Speaker worked that out on the House side of the Capitol. They're splitting it up into 4 different bills, and it's going to come to a vote. He's going to need the Democrats, right, to get it passed. And one of the big questions is what it means for his future. So,
yeah, I think the bigger story, Connell, is the entrenched strength of the right wing of the Republican Party, the MAGA base, Trump's base, right? They have the opportunity to stall things, to blow things up, to slow things down. This whole Mayorkas trial, right? You look at it's Kennedy, it's Tuberville, it's this group of the right of center Republicans that are holding stuff down. And similarly on Ukraine, Johnson's now got to figure out how to outflank Marjorie Taylor Greene and this other group of people that want to stop funding for Ukraine. So they've had this really unique power right now to blow things up, to slow things down. And the challenge for Biden and for Johnson on both sides of the party is how do you navigate that to actually get things done? And we'll find out this weekend. Can Johnson get Israel funding through? Does he have to attach it to Ukraine? Will Ukraine funding get through, or will that get stalled? And ultimately, again, going back to what independents want to see, can you get things done? Can you get support to Ukraine? Can you get support to Israel? Can you do anything on the border? And if you can't, they're going to hold you accountable.
But if he does get it done, is he done? You know, in other words, how does it affect his future?
Again, we'll find out, right? This is going to be a test of the strength of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and those types. They've said if he gets it through, they're going to come for him. He might lose his speakership over it. I think it's the right thing to do. I think there's bipartisan support. Mitch McConnell supports it. Joe Biden supports it. Ukraine has got, for the most part, bipartisan support, except for this group that is entrenched and says they're going to try to slow it down.
How do you look at the war there? I mean, there was a Congressman Garamendi, the Democrat from California, he's on armed services. He told us earlier in the week he thought the Ukrainians could hang on 3 or 4 weeks. Now, he's pushing for the aid money, right? So that's his agenda on that. We get it.
Yeah.
Some say, they can hang on longer, but I think the larger point is how long can they hang on if they don't get their money?
I don't know how long, but they're not going to keep what they've got. They're going to start to fall back. They're outnumbered on the ground in terms of troop strength, 10-1 in terms of artillery. They're going to fight like hell and try to hold on, but they're going to lose ground. They're going to start to get pushed back. Putin's going to start to advance, and this has been Putin's strategy all along. Wear them out, tire them out, test the will of the American people, and I think that's why we've got to step up and show that America will stand with the side of good against evil. We will stand with our allies, and we won't leave them hanging out to dry like we did in Afghanistan and like we've done other times before. So it's a pivotal moment for America, and I hope Johnson stands with our allies and stands with our national defense and finds a way to get it through, even if it costs him the speakership.
All right, a couple of things here as we go. We'll get a quick break in and then come back. Geraldo's going to join us at the top of the hour, but if we could bring up the telestrator here as we go to break. I just want to say the articles of impeachment against Mayorkas, you had one that's out. Article 1 has already been dismissed, so that one is out. This is the one here, Article 2, that they're going to vote on, and it's still in question for Alejandro Mayorkas. Paul, thanks for all the time.
Thank you, sir.